Hi, Henny, how are you? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, I'm Teknikolour. The Sims 4 just dropped its newest expansion pack, Adventure Awaits, and thanks to the EA Creator Network, I was provided a code to check it out in early access. Adventure Awaits comes with a new getaway feature, and I wanted to see if I could use that to recreate my favorite reality television show, Big Brother. This video is the cabin I built on stream during the early access period, but I'm also going to talk about my thoughts on the pack and if getaways worked for recreating Big Brother in the game. While I haven't been paid to play Adventure Awaits or The Sims 4 in general, I did receive the pack for free, and I do receive a commission whenever my creator code is used when purchasing Sims packs on the EA app. If you'd like to support me, you can use my code Teknikolour, but I do urge you to use someone's creator code if you can. It's not a discount code for you, but it does take a small portion of your sale from EA and passes it on to your favorite creator. That said, all opinions are my own, and I always try to use my experiences with early access to packs to help you decide if it's worth buying it or not. So if you'd rather wait for a sale, wait for a sale. I've been watching Big Brother since season 4, which aired way back in 2003. And the latest season, season 27, actually just ended the weekend before the pack came out. Please don't do the math, but I have been watching Big Brother for quite a few years, and I have always wanted to create a version of the Big Brother house in The Sims 4. This is not the Big Brother house. Since I knew that getaways could only be 6 days long and one person eliminated each day, I pared down the number of house guests to 7 instead of the typical 16. However, I did use the new getaways feature from Adventure Awaits to try to recreate the Big Brother game itself. This build is more of a cabin that ended up much larger than I expected. I did make an HOH, or head of household room, but based on gameplay, it didn't quite get used as I had expected. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk more about this build. I wanted to make a house that the house guests or getaway participants could spend their summer in. I knew that I needed a bathroom, a main bedroom, a gym, a kitchen, dining room, living room, and backyard, plus, as I mentioned before, an HOH bedroom. This is more or less exactly what you'd find in the Big Brother house, except they typically include a diary room, space for production, and other rooms for specific features of the season, like a have-not room. Since my plan was to just test out the new getaways feature over on my Twitch streams, I opted for just the essentials. I later realized that I missed out on a few essentials, specifically skill building and activity-based objects. I needed this to recreate the head of household competitions from the show. Don't worry, I'll explain more about the gameplay and how I set up the getaway and custom venue a little later. This build itself is 3 floors, and I utilized the topmost floor as a flex space to handle most of the HOH competitions. The house itself also adjusted over time as we played on stream to make sure it was still fitting our needs. I'll be uploading the original version of the house to the gallery, but if you'd like the version you see by the end of this video, let me know in the comments. With all of that out of the way, I think I should probably talk about Build Buy from Adventure Awaits. This ended up being a limited pack build, though I hadn't set out to limit packs. The gallery version of this build uses Adventure Awaits, base game, but also Enchanted by Nature, Businesses and Hobbies, Horse Ranch, Growing Together, Seasons, and a single kit, Riviera Retreat. One of the most disappointing parts of this pack's build buy is that it doesn't come with a kitchen set, and for the bathroom offerings, we only received a shower, which I consider to be more of an outdoor shower, and a more modern-looking bathroom sink. I get why we don't always get kitchen sets or even a full bathroom set in expansion packs, but I personally think that when an expansion pack includes them, the pack is automatically worth more than those that don't. The build buy is very interesting, in my opinion. I feel like there's a mixture of styles here, but kind of boils down to modern cabin and rustic cabin slash campsite. I think there was a lot of worry that this pack would feel very much like Outdoor Retreat Part 2. I don't think that's fair. I think there's enough difference between both packs that they stand out from one another, both through build buy and gameplay. Yes, Outdoor Retreat does have similar cabin, campsite vibes, but Outdoor Retreat seems to be inspired by American forests. Adventure Awaits, however, seems to be inspired more by New Zealand. I'll dive deeper into Gibby Point, the new world from the pack, later on. I just wanted to explain my thoughts on the differences between Adventure Awaits and Outdoor Retreat. Speaking of which, I think it kind of boils down to this. Outdoor Retreat feels very focused on the camping experience, while Adventure Awaits seems to revolve more around adventure, of which camping is just one small part. As for my overall opinion of the build buy, I've only played with the pack for about a week, but I think I'm underwhelmed. I said before that we didn't receive a kitchen set, though we do get some kitchen appliances like the blender and some bathroom objects. However, we only received short wall height doors and windows. I was really disappointed by that, especially because I don't think swatches for the doors and windows are all the exact same. For instance, some had swatch crossover, but since some of the windows have screens only instead of glass, they didn't seem to have a match across all types. Personally, I think that's a big negative about this pack when it comes to build buy. Aside from that, the pack has pretty nice offerings for build buy objects. I like pretty much all of the items, except I'm not the biggest fan of the distress style that most of the objects lean towards in Adventure Awaits. I used a few couches and chairs in this build that I absolutely adore and will likely use often. I'd say that these lean more modern than the rest of the rustic or distressed style options. I really like the lamps, and I love the new plant. I just wish we had received more. The art is really nice, though I'm not sure how much I'll use them in everyday builds. However, we did receive quite a few objects that are tied specifically to gameplay, like the archery targets, pool slides and diving boards, butterfly, moth enclosures, papercraft, modular playground equipment, spin bikes, and free weights. Plus, they have the Nightmare Fuel imaginary friends, so I feel like the inclusion of these objects tied to gameplay helps balance out the feeling of other build buy decor being a little on the lighter side. The world itself, Gibby Point, is quite beautiful. It comes with 3 neighborhoods and 13 lots. This build, and honestly the majority of my time playing with the pack, was focused in Crystal Valley, mostly because this build is located on the Prospector's Paradise lot, which is the only empty lot in the world. I think Crystal Valley might be my least favorite of the 3 neighborhoods, but I didn't want to bulldoze any of the existing lots just to make this build. I think this neighborhood was my least favorite, just based on the fact that the other 2 neighborhoods, Wanderwood Wilds and Jellyfish Junction, seem to have a bit more going on in them. It could easily have been due to the fact that the majority of my time in this neighborhood was spent on getaways, but it felt very secluded from the rest of the world. Also, since my getaway was elimination-based, some of my Sims stayed in the neighborhood, but wouldn't spend their time on the lot. I had to manually send them home to their home lot. And because it took me a while to discover that, the Sims just wandered around Crystal Valley and seemed to divide their time between kayaking, going to the public restroom, and using the nearby telescope. I did spend a little bit of time before working on this build playing in each of the neighborhoods, mostly to check out the overall world and each of the lots, and then to get accustomed to how getaways work. During that time, I enjoyed Jellyfish Junction to explore kayaking and the lighthouse and the nearby boardwalk. Wanderwood Wilds was the last neighborhood I explored, and I think it is my favorite. The geyser itself and the surrounding area is really beautiful, even if there didn't seem to be as much to do there specifically. I somehow didn't even check out the Firewatch station, which is something I was really looking forward to when I first found out about it. I played a little bit with the Chavez Ralston household. Nigel seems to be the face of this pack from the trailers, and I think I completely misunderstood their story and the difference between the new park worker career and Nigel's status as the camp director of Camp Gibby Gibby. He doesn't have a job, but his wife Sarah is a park worker. If you set up a getaway using the outdoor kids camp preset schedule, however, the sim you are controlling will autofill the camp director role. So the camp director role and the park worker career are not the same. I had been under the impression that Nigel's career was tied to Camp Gibby Gibby, but it seems like he needs to be manually selected as the camp director when setting up the getaway, if you wish for him to have that role. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a chance to dive into any Create-A-Sim, so the majority of my experiences with Kaz were with whatever the pre-made townies were wearing. It's my understanding that all of the Kaz offerings in Adventure Awaits skew more towards activewear, which makes sense given the theming of the pack. However, I don't think Adventure Awaits will see as much widespread use throughout my own adventures with The Sims 4, at least when it comes to Kaz. Still, I've only played with the pack for about a week, so my personal feelings about the Kaz options can completely change. Here's the thing about Adventure Awaits. I think its overarching theme is adventure. Camping can be part of that adventure, if you so choose, but it isn't the only adventure. However, the majority of the build by and casts seem to skew more towards the camping theme instead of adventure, which, fair. How would one really boil down adventure into build by and Kaz and have it be consistent? It's my personal opinion that, taking my lack of exposure to the pack's Create-A-Sim content into account, Adventure Awaits, from the perspective of a builder, is kind of lackluster. There's nothing particularly wrong with the offerings, and they're definitely designed well and tailored to the camp or active theme, but for a builder, it's extremely limiting to just have this pack focused only on that. If you're specifically going to be building something around nature, camping, cabins, that sort of thing, I think the pack is fairly solid, either on its own with the base game or in combination with other packs with similar themes. Unexpectedly though, Adventure Awaits' worth is mostly in its gameplay. Where I was disappointed by Kaz and Build By, with the latter usually being my main draw with packs, the gameplay from Adventure Awaits is the best part of the pack. Going above that, I'd say that if your personal playstyle is gameplay, Adventure Awaits is almost necessary. I had such an enjoyable time playing with the pack that even if I ran into bugs or I initially misunderstood something about a gameplay feature, I had a ton of fun regardless. Getaways completely change how you can play The Sims 4. Before I created this build and started working on a Big Brother kind of competition using Getaways, I tried out both the Love Highland or romantic competition and Camp Gibby Gibby or Kids Outdoor Camp Getaways, and both were thoroughly entertaining. Trying to progress through a romantic competition was interesting and legitimately funny, especially when I forgot that two of the Sims that I had control over in the Love Highland household were married, and I unintentionally almost ended up getting them divorced. I also hadn't fully understood the rule aspect of the system yet, so I honestly had no clue how the game was deciding who was up for elimination and who wasn't. I kept myself safe by playing as the hosts and two competitors, one of whom I ended up marrying off to another competitor. As for Camp Gibby Gibby, I unintentionally made Sarah Chavez-Ralston the camp director instead of her husband Nigel, and their daughters were two of the Sims I was controlling. However, they ended up getting into a physical fight before I even set up the getaway, so they ended up not being the closest of sisters. Still, it was truly heartwarming to experience sleepaway camp for the first time. I'd only ever gone to day camp at my school in the summer growing up, so I hadn't really expected to have such a fun and nice experience with sleepaway camp. Plus, I found out that your Sims can wake up with moodlets like feeling homesick upon waking up at camp. It added to my experience, and even though I probably handled the getaway with complete chaos, I absolutely loved it. Now seems about a good time to finally delve into my tests of using Adventure Awaits Getaways feature to play Big Brother in The Sims. First, I built this cabin, but instead of keeping it as a residential lot, I switched the lot type to a custom venue, which is new with this pack. If you're familiar with businesses and hobbies, the way you set up a custom venue and a getaway is similar to how small businesses work. When choosing the custom venue lot type, you are prompted to configure the lot's schedule using presets. There are a total of 8 presets: cooking competition, cozy bed and breakfast, creativity retreat, fitness retreat, outdoor kids camp, romantic competition, senior living community, and sim popularity contest. You can adjust these preset schedules as you wish and build upon them, or create your own, either from scratch or by using one of the existing presets as a base. Schedules can have a total of 8 time slots, each 3 hours long, though you can have less time slots for longer time spans, where Sims can be given a main activity and or a role activity to perform. Each role can have a total of 5 activities to perform in addition to the main activity. You can also select an outfit type for each role, designated either by category, style, custom, or none, which will have the Sim default to their own clothing. I somehow missed this part entirely, so some of my Sims were changing outfits based on their role's category or a particular style. This led to quite a lot of confusion during my testing streams because each of the Sims that competed were created by actual community members of mine, each typically based on their own images, so they knew whenever their Sim self was in an outfit they didn't pick out for them. This seems to work similarly to other packs, like Dine Out's feature for setting clothing for staff and customers. I've been mentioning roles and how they play into time slots within the schedule, but I haven't actually addressed what exactly these are. As an example, the Sim Popularity Contest preset has 5 roles: Sporty Sim, Brainy Sim, Friendly Sim, Rebel Sim, and Popular Sim. Outdoor Kids Camp, on the other hand, has 3: Camper, Camp Counselor, and Camp Director. In my testing, I used the Sim Popularity Contest as a base and adjusted both the time slots and the roles. We also have the ability to add specific roles from a role library in case you need some inspiration. Each role can have multiple Sims assigned to it with their own criteria and activities set. This seemed to be very much like the club systems from Get Together, where you could have a club, or in this case a role, set up for only specific age groups, skill levels, gender, romantic orientation, region, trait, occult, career, relationship status, and celebrity level. Interestingly, each role could have a maximum of 5 criteria and 5 role activities assigned. While I am sure that there are still limitations on the amount of roles and Sims you can have, I kept my testing between 6 and 7 Sims. Oh geez, how many people did I just trigger by saying 6, 7? I still do not understand why that's even a thing, but apparently that's quite big with the kids these days. For our purposes, our roles ended up being sporty, gamer, party, romantic, zen, nerdy, and HOH. On our second day of testing, we eliminated the HOH role entirely because we swapped Sims between roles, and it seemed to have an unintended impact on the getaway. I'll explain more about why I think this was a little later on. Our schedule consisted of 6 time slots: breakfast at 7 a.m., free time at 10, the HOH competition at 1, dinner at 5, be friendly at 8, and sleep at 11. For each of these time slots, a main task was assigned, as well as role activities. During breakfast, for example, the main task was have breakfast, while each role's activity was set to eat. Most of these time slots were straightforward, but I just wanted to explain 2 specific time slots. Free time had a free time main task assigned, and each role's set to role activities, were populated in. The HOH competition had a skill building activity assigned as the main task and role activity. I did this to ensure that all of the contestants would be working on the same skill building activity, aka our head of household competition. Whoever had progressed the most in that skill by the end of that time slot would be crowned the head of household and would become ineligible for elimination. On day 1 of testing, I played with a household of 7 Sims, each representing an actual member of my Twitch community, with myself being the 7th Sim and the starting HOH. In Big Brother, each week, the house guests compete in a head of household competition, where the new HOH is crowned. That HOH then nominates 2 house guests for eviction. During that week, there's a second competition where one of the house guests can be saved from eviction and another house guest is up for eviction instead. Then, at the end of the week, the remaining house guests vote on which of the 2 nominated house guests to evict. Then, the next HOH competition begins, with the outgoing HOH typically ineligible to compete in that competition. In our version of the game, we would simply swap roles after an HOH competition. So whichever sim progressed the most in the HOH competition would swap roles with them. So if the incoming HOH was romantic, the outgoing HOH would be given the romantic role going forward. The progress of the specific HOH skill was manually checked by me and is not part of the getaway or custom venue, like the elimination is. I therefore had to have all of the Sims competing in the same household, so I could easily see all of their skill levels. There's also a creative skill elimination rule for getaways, but you can't have both that and the popularity skill applied to the same getaway. I think this was the biggest issue in my testing, because it doesn't seem like competition-based getaways were designed with this specific type of competition in mind. Which, fair. In all of the promotional materials for Adventure Awaits, we were shown competitions like Survivor or Love Island, where there are contestants and hosts. In terms of the actual getaway setup, this is what I did. I started out playing with the household of all of my 7 competitor Sims, so the Sim selves of myself and 6 of my community members. Then, using the calendar, I planned a getaway event lasting 6 nights, the maximum allowed for getaways. Using the custom venue I had built, and we're watching me build right now, as the location. On the second page of the getaway planning window, I made sure it was populated with our pre-made schedule preset, and then individually selected my household Sims as the Sims for each of the 7 roles. On the final page, I chose to add the popularity elimination rule, where the lowest progress loses instead of lowest score. Then I made sure that under the Sims to befriend category, each of the roles were checked. In the elimination candidates category, I made sure to check all of the roles except for the HOH sim. This meant that the current HOH could not be eliminated. During the actual getaway, each day I would swap the roles for the incoming and outgoing HOHs after each HOH competition time slot ended. However, the following morning when elimination would happen, sometimes the newly crowned HOH would be eliminated because they had the lowest progress, and therefore, according to the game, they were supposed to be eliminated. It seems like the progress or score for the elimination rule overrides the criteria for role-based elimination. It's my understanding that this is happening because the game didn't expect us to adjust roles on the fly. Everything else, for the most part, seemed to perform as intended. I say for the most part because our eliminated Sims would not want to stay on the lot, nor would they autonomously go to their home lot. Instead, they would spend the rest of the getaway in the neighborhood, bouncing between the public bathroom, a nearby telescope, and kayaking. On day 2 of testing, we decided to remove the HOH role entirely. Instead, we track which sim won the HOH competition, and while editing the getaway, we'd uncheck their roles from the elimination candidates category. Oddly enough, our first sim to be eliminated the following morning was the HOH, and therefore was not supposed to be eligible for elimination. I think that sim just had the lowest progress within the competition again, and even though we saved their role from elimination, the individual sim was still eliminated. Again, I think this was simply because we were attempting to use getaways in a way that was not intended. There's just one thing that keeps me holding on to hope that Big Brother can still be possible with the new getaways feature. This could be a bug. We did this testing during my early access period as an EA partner, and the pack has only been freshly released. It's possible that we just discovered a bug while testing because we were still able to swap roles and change elimination criteria throughout the getaway. If the Sims team didn't intend for us to be able to do so, wouldn't they just have disabled editing of roles or rules after the getaway had begun? I've reached out to my contact at EA for clarification, and I'll update you here in the description when I hear back. Regardless, while I can see myself using getaways for a variety of reasons in my own gameplay, and this particular test of simulating Big Brother in the game didn't work as I had expected, I had a ton of fun playing around with custom venues and getaways. I think this is a feature that, whether you experience bugs or not, is still valuable to add into your game if you are more focused on gameplay. If you're primarily a builder or you solely live in Create a Sim, I'm not sure that this pack would be a must-have pack. But when it comes to gameplay, I think it adds enough adventure, for lack of a better word, to your game. I definitely see myself using this to add more depth to events I've already created, like family reunions, or to create entirely new types of events to my own gameplay. Since this speed build is basically over though, let me hop into the game and I'll give you a little bit of a tour. So here we are in the game, and this is the entire cabin, and I think I built it way too big, especially because a lot of the balcony spaces never got used. Once you come into the cabin, there's some places to just sit and relax, and there are 2 staircases to get upstairs. But you go through here, there is a dance floor and some more seating, and then on this side is the kitchen, which got a lot of use, and a lot of things were broken by the end of this, and then nobody was fixing anything. Right behind that is the dining room. And then you can see here, I have laid out some stuff for some of the HOH competitions, but we have the living room over here, and then we have 2 desks, one for paper crafting and another one for an actual computer. On the right side of the cabin, we have the bathrooms, and then we have the bedroom for all of the participants. Upstairs, we do have this outdoor balcony space that kind of wraps around. This room over here is the HOH's room. And then on this side, there's just some random stuff for the house guests to actually have fun. So this was not necessarily tied to any of the HOH competitions. It was more just to keep the house guests busy during free time. So we have some of those items around. We have a bar. Over here, we have some pottery because the Sims ended up liking that from one of the HOH competitions. And then we have an exercise area. Then this ladder leads up to the flex space, and this was used for many HOH competitions. On this side, you have like more of the entrance to the backyard. So you have some dining spaces, and then back here, there's a fire pit, there's a hot tub, there is a pool with a slide, and there's even a dartboard. And then on the other side of the building, there's this walkway that kind of just leads down to the archery area. And this was the first HOH competition that The Sims performed in. And honestly, this was pretty fun. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to EA for this early access opportunity. You can grab this build from the gallery with my EA ID, Teknikolour. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss out on future videos. If you're ordering Adventure Awaits or any other Sims packs, please use my creator code, Teknikolour. It's free for you and supports the channel. If you want even more Sims, I also play my Legacy Challenge live over on Twitch. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.